This is the Feduce X9 USB microphone kit, and welcome to my new apartment. This is where I used to live. It is something I very badly wish I could say. Just moved to Layton, Utah. My new place is nestled safely between the freeway and the railroad tracks, and is at the exact intersection of the flight path between the Ogden Regional Airport and the Air Force Base. Yet the planes never hit each other. It's amazing. I'm currently in temporary housing and I don't have access to most of my stuff. Some of it was lost in the move, some of it was broken, I think my power tools were stolen, but for the most part, it's all just buried in a storage unit. Pretty much the only stuff I can use right now is whatever I found on top, because I cannot unpack that storage unit into this tiny apartment. So what better time than right now to review the very first USB microphone kit I could find, which I also haven't talked about before, the Feduce X9. This is a cheap starter apartment, and this is a cheap starter microphone, so let's start our new life together on the right foot. And wait, before you unsubscribe, the videos are going to get better, okay? I have a pile of really interesting stuff I want to talk about. I just need space for a workbench and a studio. All I need to do is sell my place in Colorado Springs first. It's been on the market for 2 months, and it's not looking good. But that's okay. I figure what better time than right now to break out a cheap USB microphone and test it in a realistic situation that affects nearly 24 people every single year. For most people, I recommend that a cheap USB microphone kit with a pop filter, a shock mount, and the right stand is all you really need for pretty much anything you're going to do from behind a desk. Nobody cares about your microphone. Nobody's going to click on your video because of your microphone. If you're using a microphone like this to make content, and you're using it properly, the microphone is not the reason you can't find an audience. The real reason you can't find an audience is because of a vast global conspiracy perpetrated by the Hawk. Did you know that Google is Canadian? Look, people expect online content to sound like this, and if you sound like this, then you're meeting that expectation and they stop caring. There are creators who still get millions of views using nothing better than an old Blue Yeti that they haven't upgraded in 10 years. Blue isn't even a brand anymore, and Logitech is still charging $130 for that old design. The thing is, USB microphones have gotten a lot better in the last decade, and cheap generic knockoffs sound at least as good as a Yeti, if not better. Not all of them, but enough of them. There are a lot of similar microphones out there for cheap. It's a highly competitive market. They're all made out of the same parts. They all sound about the same. The differences are pretty much cosmetic, and there's almost always something good on sale or on clearance. I would much rather teach you how to buy a good microphone than to tell you which one to buy, because I don't care about your microphone. Nobody does. But I realize some people don't want to think about it, and of those people, some of them are accidentally going to buy something stupid, and rather than just sucking it up or returning the piece of crap, some of them are going to turn around and blame me. It would be convenient to have a vetted list of microphones I could hand to people and say, buy any of these, whichever one is cheapest, and it will be fine. Which is what led me to buy the Feduce X9 a year ago. I've used some bad USB microphones, but it's been so easy to find good ones that I convinced myself it's kind of a hard formula to screw up, but Feduce found a way, and I want to talk about it.
Feduce X9. Let's see what's inside the box. So this is the part I actually want, the desk mount mic stand. I've got better ones than this, I don't know where they're at. Right now I need functional, compact, and cheap, so I'm gonna make this work. Also, I guess they threw in a USB microphone as a bonus. I've already said cheap USB microphones are good enough, and I'm gonna keep saying it, but I don't mean this one in particular. Here's why I don't like this one. Look at these holes. They're all you get for mounting the microphone. You usually see holes like this on microphones that include custom shock mounts, but that's not what happened here. Instead, you get a super cheap generic shock mount, which is too big for the microphone, and a little thumb screw nub to just sort of stop the microphone from sliding out. When you do that, the mount still blocks access to the volume knob and the mute button. It doesn't work, and it still falls out sometimes. So this microphone sounds fine, it sounds typical, you'll hear that in the sound test, but ergonomically, it's junk. If you want to see some more cheap junk with weird design, check this out. So whoever made this oven decided to use a 7-segment display instead of individual LEDs for each of the modes, and they made this overlay to point at each segment. It's not even the same part as the actual display on this oven, so I don't understand how this was supposed to save money, but I think this oven is from 1992, so I don't know, maybe things were different back then. Anyways, plenty of comparable microphones do a lot better than the Feduce X9 at the same price, and you should buy one of those instead. Speaking of things at the same price that should be better, you're currently hearing a Neat Bumblebee 2. It's been around $25 on Amazon for over a year, and I bought this copy from Woot for $17. I think this one might be B-stock or something, because the Amazon one had better quality control.
Here I'm sitting by my fireplace, which is what this apartment has instead of a furnace. The position of the microphone and which side you're talking into matters a lot. For example, this fireplace has no glass on it, so in addition to being kind of dangerous, it also makes a lot of noise. There's a cardioid microphone, which means the front of it is sensitive and the back of it is less sensitive. As I rotate the microphone away from my mouth, the volume of my voice is going to go down relative to the volume of the background noise, which is a bunch of gas coming out of a pipe. And as I move it even further around, I'm at the back of the microphone now, which is the least sensitive spot. Another thing to be aware of is that there's side address microphones like this. There's also end address microphones where you're talking to the top or tip or end of the microphone. One of the problems you're going to find is that there's a lot of microphones that are side address that actually look like they're supposed to be end address, but as you talk into that end of it, you end up sounding not very good at all, and that is the most common thing that people are messing up. So if a microphone isn't sounding as good as you think it should, the very first thing you should check is to make sure you're actually talking to the right side of it. Our first microphone comparison is similar but different. The Feduce X9 was a side address condenser microphone. This is an end address dynamic microphone. It also came with a boom arm stand. The instructions say it's called a WM8. I don't know what brand it's from, and it cost $20. It's a USB input and an XLR input, so I think it's trying to be like a Shure MV7 maybe. The most important thing you want is good sound quality for the space you're in. So this microphone will sound completely different than the other one. It's technically cheaper. Is different better or worse for the kind of sound you want? On the topic of super cheap dynamic microphones, I have the Singing Machine SMM205D. This microphone does not have an XLR input. It's currently plugged into an adapter into my Zoom F3. I was trying to plug it directly into the microphone input of my laptop through this little adapter. I think this adapter's having a problem because that should have worked, but didn't. It's all plastic, it picks up radio interference, and this is the kind of sound you can expect from a karaoke or toy level of dynamic microphone. We're done with the cheapest of the cheap, and we're back on the Feduce X9. This is a reminder of what I'm talking about when I say that a USB condenser microphone is good enough audio for most people. Next up is the 512 Audio Tempest. I spent $35 on it at the time. It's now back up to $55. The 512 Audio Tempest is an example of a microphone which promised way better sound quality than a generic piece of crap and launched at a much higher price, failed to find its footing, and is now available on clearance. Pretty much every part of this microphone is better than the Feduce X9 except for this janky stand. It has a headphone jack. The build quality is way better. Is the sound quality of a $100 or $200 USB microphone so much better that it's worth paying a premium over something that's $50? Hold on, you guys hear that? It sounds like a bunch of fireworks are going off. I think it's coming from over here. Yeah, so my water heater, not exactly good for filming a video. Okay, I have moved to be as far away from the water heater as I can possibly get, which isn't exactly that much further away, but I'm doing my best here, guys. Okay, back on the Feduce X9. Here's what it sounds like while I'm sitting here in this incredibly boring looking corner. Next up is a Majority RS Pro. This is an older microphone with great build quality that I've bought quite a few of, but they're all on clearance for between $18 and $25. The Majority RS Pro records at 16-bit, 48 kilohertz, which isn't a big deal if you're just talking into it, but if you're buying an unknown microphone, I recommend you get one with 24-bit, 96 kilohertz, and USB-C. You don't need any of those things to get good sound, but your likelihood of getting good sound is going to be higher because those microphones are newer. Newer USB microphones just tend to be better than the older ones, especially the very old ones. Now there's a jet flying over my apartment. Can you hear the jet?
Now for a dynamic handheld microphone, this is a Beta 58A. Not a Shure Beta 58A, this is a generic Beta 58A. It's a counterfeit. This microphone cost about $12. It was wired incorrectly, which is something I would love to show you how to fix if I had access to my soldering iron, but I don't.
Back on the Feduce X9, the microphone is a little bit further than the width of my hand away from my mouth, and this is what it continues to sound like as I sit here in this corner wondering what I'm doing with my life. Next up, with a huge jump in price, is the Shure SM7B. This is a broadcast-style dynamic microphone that is very popular with creators and costs $400. Sorry, so expensive, but it's what I have with me. Is a broadcast-style dynamic microphone probably a better choice for an empty apartment? Maybe, but is it worth all that extra cost for somebody who's not even making money off their content? I don't think so. Okay, back on the Feduce X9, looking at all these blank walls, wondering which one is going to be a good place for a TV, and I think the answer is none of them. That brings us to the Electro Voice RE20, which, like the SM7B, is a dynamic broadcast-style microphone. But unlike the SM7B, I actually like this one. This microphone is great at rejecting unwanted sound. You probably can't even tell there's kids slamming doors in the parking lot right now. It costs $450. It's a really good microphone. I love it, but it does cost a lot. And for most people sitting at their desk making content, I just don't think it's worth it. I do recommend you buy a microphone like this used because they hold their value. So if down the line you have to sell it, you're not really losing that much. Now I'm trying out the Feduce out on my porch, and I figure if I have to listen to planes, trains, and automobiles all day, maybe you do too. It's a bit breezy out here, so let's see if this foam windscreen actually screens out the wind. Why would you want to record with the USB microphone on a porch? That sounds like a you problem, my friend. Okay, now what you're hearing is this Digi Mic 2 with a little furry thing on it right in the center of my chest. And here's TikTok position. Now, this is Sennheiser MKH416, which is a $1,000 shotgun microphone. Is this a fair comparison? I don't feel bad that I don't like this microphone. For starters, they don't make them anymore. You can't buy them, which makes this review completely useless. If you're still watching, would you please buy my house in Colorado Springs? Because I do not want to live here anymore.